The next is buffer overflow.
What is this buffer overflow, ma'am?
To understand the concept of buffer overflow, let us take the example of a cup of tea. When you pour more tea in this cup beyond its capacity, tea will overflow and spread over to the nearby area. In the same manner, if the storage area of the system has a fixed code length capacity and some code tries to force more data, it is but natural that program will overflow the boundaries and it will overwrite itself in the memory in immediate nearby locations. This phenomenon is called the buffer overflow.
How does this phenomenon can harm our systems, Nandita ma'am?
The potential threat of buffer overflow can be explained as overwriting of the memory of the system, which can result in corrupting the data or crashing the system. The buffer overflow may result into not only overwriting adjacent memory location, but also it could corrupt the data or crash the program, or might even cause the malicious code to execute programs just inside your system, which can steal your data saved in your system.
Just how this treat originated, ma'am?
Well, for that you need to know the factual origin of the threat. As a matter of fact, the credit to push cybersecurity to the forefront of the computer professionals goes to a buffer overflow in Unix program that allowed a cyber expert to create a worm which infected 10% of the internet in just 2 days in the late 1980s.
Oh, it all started back then?
Yes, Rajesh, this was not a very new thing. The risk factor is bad programming practices.
Bad programming practices that leave open vulnerabilities are responsible for buffer overflow. In some programming languages, there are many manipulative functions of memory in which there are no checks that the number of bytes which are being written or read would fit in the buffer. The result is that the buffer meant for it gets quickly overwritten. It is often common for the developers of web applications to not allocate buffers that are large enough or check for the overflow issues. Attackers misuse this vulnerability to sometimes get control of the administrative rights of your computer system too. In reality, a buffer overflow exploit, the attacker sends data to a program, which it stores in an undersized stack buffer. The result is that information on the call stack is overwritten, including the function's return pointer. The data sets the value of the return pointer so that when the function returns, it transfers control to malicious code contained in the attacker's data. Although this type of stack buffer overflow is still common on some platforms and in some development communities, there are a variety of other types of buffer overflow, including heap buffer overflow and off-by-one error, among others. Another very similar class of flaws is known as format string attack. There are a number of excellent books that provide detailed information on how buffer overflow attacks work, including building secure software, writing secure code, and the shell coder's handbook. At the code level, buffer overflow vulnerabilities usually involve the violation of a programmer's assumptions. Many memory manipulation functions in C and C++ do not perform bounds checking and can easily overwrite the allocated bounds of the buffers they operate upon. Even bounded functions can cause vulnerabilities when used incorrectly. The combination of memory manipulation and mistaken assumptions about the size or makeup of a piece of data is the root cause of most buffer overflows.
Are there any example of malwares which creates buffer overflow, Nandita ma'am?
Yes, there are examples, Rajesh.